Welcome to Bigfoot
and the Bunny.
This is a couple's journey into the mysterious,
the unknown, and the
paranormal. I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm your host, Kristen Johnson.
Together we are Bigfoot and the Bunny.
Hey there. Happy Saturday. Welcome to Bigfoot and the Bunny. I am your host, Chris Carr.
And I am Kristen Johnson, I think, again today.
We believe so.
Don't you love when I do
the DNA records would seem to indicate
yes,
that you are Kristen Johnson. How are you guys doing? Thank you for joining us. We're really excited about our show today, and it's been a pretty exciting week. We did want to touch on the fact that we were on our friend Nathaniel Gillis's show, Ghost Notes, which is on Leak Project, and that'll be coming out soon as Rex is done editing it and all that. And that was a lot of fun.
It was,
and it brought up something from one of our older shows with Nathaniel. Yeah, with Nate. We call him Nate, but you guys gotta call him Nate. No, you can call him whatever you want. I don't think he really cares, but he's an awesome guy, a really good friend of ours and like family. And we did a show with him. How long ago was this?
It was
2 years, right?
April 10th, my birthday.
Yeah,
April 10th, 2021.
2021.
Yes.
Okay, so it was 2 years old, and we were getting these crazy EVPs during the interview, and we had made a clip of them, and they're very angry. It's hard to make everything out, but you'll hear some words.
Oh, terrible words.
For sure. And we wanted to touch on that and play that for you, although it'll be in the Ghost Notes. And when that's out, you can watch our pages. We'll definitely be posting links to that. And it was a lot of fun. We got into all kinds of stuff, particularly about our theories and things about the paranormal, from dimensions to roles and the stuff you guys know that we talk about a lot. Let me see if I can share that real quick.
It's very loud.
No, I don't want to do it that way. Hold on one sec. Sorry for the break in momentum. Way to go. I want to share a video file. That's what we want to do. Okay, yeah, here it goes. This is it's actually 3 clips at different times. There were these voices talking, and they talked all through the broadcast,
stream. But
these were 3 of the more clear things that they were saying.
I'm excited.
Yeah, SB7 flies somewhere around 40,000 feet.
Me too, dude.
Things I researched. Right?
It says F you, Nate. I'm the other. And then right after that goes
motherfuckers. Yeah, well, we're not necessarily a family show, so you can say that.
I know, but
I'm excited.
Yeah, SB7 flies somewhere around 40,000 feet.
Me too, dude.
Things I researched. Yeah, so we were all dressed up. I had my blazer on with the Rush shirt you gave me.
Yeah.
You were looking good with your leopard shirt.
Nate
had a hat on.
Scally. No,
he had a different hat on that time. Yeah, he had the scallywag on the other night. Actually, I had to turn mine around because we looked ridiculous.
We just learned all about this scally thing, so it's
right.
a big thing to us. I'm seeing scallies
There's
everywhere.
A history, and the nickname scally for this kind of hat, it's sometimes called a flat cap or newsboy hat, is that it was the working class. It was a sign of being part of the working class and being, this is how far back it goes, being a scallywag and proudly saying I'm a scallywag. So I'm a worker bee. So I'll wear the thing. I'm a scallywag. I don't care. I'm good with it. What else do we want to talk about before we bring our
we just wanted to really thank Nate.
Yeah, I wanted to thank him
Rex
for having
Bear.
us on.
He was cool as hell.
It was a lot of fun.
From the Leak Project.
We were nervous.
Thank you.
A lot of people watch that show, a lot of people. So
thousands and thousands, and I almost threw up all day long. So yeah, we do this 2 shows a week. But
yeah,
oh my God.
Yeah. The Burger King is going down.
Oh, yes.
That's something that's new. And I only mention this because it was one of the places I worked. My daughter worked there as a kid, as a teenager. And it is. Apparently, she worked there for years. It's not doing that great, and I was going to share something about that. Let me see. Oh yeah, they're here we go. Back to the stream. That's not the right thing. Ah, geez, I'm losing all my momentum. There he is.
Oh,
All
that thing
This
creeps
is from
me out.
CBR.com. The Burger King is going down. Burger
Down,
King.
down.
Apparently, some of the larger franchises have already closed, and yeah, they've not been the same. They've been dropping. They used to be number 2 behind McDonald's for years and years, and they're just not. And their food is really expensive now. Go to Burger King and get a chicken sandwich like combo thing, and it's
It
like
was
$15.
I remember
Like-
when you like were so mad one night
Yeah,
because it was like $50 for just like 2 meals, and
it wasn't
and
that
everything
bad,
else,
but it was like 30 or something.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there
ridiculous.
with my teenager, and we're in the drive-thru, and I'm looking across the street, and there's this like awesome Italian place called Wise Guys Deli, and it's in Cumberland, Rhode Island, where we are located. And I'm like, wow, we could have ate there for probably less money, and the food's awesome. And I'm getting this like skank burger for like $15. I was kind of offended, and apparently it's having an effect. So
Get the comments there.
that
Joshua,
is something.
Joshua Dixon has.
Oh yeah,
plenty
lots
of
of
those
comments
hats.
out there. But yeah, I'll miss the Crown if they go out completely. Hey there, Mort. How's it going? Mr. Greg Cass. How you doing, sir? Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. Hello, Barbara Woodbury Spear. What is happening? Joanne Stewart's out there.
Hi, Joanne.
5 o'clock somewhere. Hell yeah, it is. It's 7 o'clock here. There's Josh. Hey, what's going on, buddy? Oh, you used to work for BK as well. Yeah. One of my first jobs. And yeah, my daughter worked there for a number of years.
No, she worked there. That's weird.
Let's see. Crystals,
There she
Cards,
is.
and Chakras says Burger King has never been a family favorite, but the Crown is something, right? I mean, the Crown
Don't go back in my day. Things.
had some value, but man, what a creepy mascot.
I-
And the other thing they
it
did is like they tried to make like the most unhealthy food for the longest time, right? It was like triple Whopper, sloppy Whoppies, and
sloppy woppies, I call them. Yeah.
you know, and
But
just
I found that
eggs
they
and
were good.
just like everything on a burger.
And we just followed you. Crystals, Cards, and Chakras main page.
You know, yeah, they do give coupons, and you got to use them because if
You have to now.
you buy the thing in the regular price, it's just ridiculous. But it's not paranormal, so we're going to get off of that.
Yeah. So
I just you know, the Burger King going down, just I don't know.
okay.
I had to make mention of it. Mort asks, how do we get the nickname Bigfoot and the Bunny?
More.
Well,
Really?
yeah. Well, there is a story behind that, and it has nothing to do with cryptids other than mentioning Bigfoot.
Yes.
And Kristen and I were standing in a front yard, the place I was living then,
Mhm.
and we were outside looking at the sky.
And we had
And-
bunnies everywhere. There was always bunnies everywhere.
Yeah,
We
there
used
was
to feed the bunnies.
a family of bunnies that lived between my yard and the neighbor's yard and the hedges, and they were always in the front yard, and you would throw them fruit
I would.
right, from your sangria.
Don't do that because I'm
That
gonna get
Nate
like.
knows very well.
I didn't
Nathaniel.
really do that.
Yeah, you did.
No,
And it would feed
they
the,
weren't drunk bunnies. For God's sake, just go for it now.
yeah.
Just
Anyways,
go.
there were bunnies out there, and we liked the bunnies.
Love
I
the
don't
bunnies.
know why that's such a big deal, but we liked the bunnies, and we were looking at the sky, and
Peter's gonna come.
we
on, yeah.
saw what we believe was probably a UFO.
All I
was-
could do was point up. It was the UFO. It was a orange orb, orangey red, but good. It was faster than a plane,
Mhm.
and
slower
but
than
it
a
was,
shooting star.
didn't have.
It
a
wasn't
tail,
a satellite, and it was screwing across the sky. We were watching it, and
and I
we had a-
watched it go over the horizon, and
Yeah.
all I could do was point up.
wow,
and
we're
then
talking over each other wicked
We
bad
are.
today. Can we not do that? Let's
Okay.
try not to. All right. Anyways, it was going wicked fast, and we were like, we had some phenomena in the house and already, and we're like, oh, next thing you'll know, you see a Bigfoot and a bunny. And then later we did this show, this radio thing came up, and we mentioned that that might be a good show name, and because it's just catchy. Yeah. So that's all. Hey there, Kimmy Corpse.
Stephen Miller's in the audience.
All right. Yeah, maybe haunted bunnies. Maybe. And this one's haunted. Anyways,
Yeah.
Debbie Wallace Hagen, hello. All right. Well, let's get right to business because we got lots of stuff to talk about. Our guest today is Miranda Young, She grew up in the Appalachian Mountains of East Tennessee, in the very rural town of Robbins. Miranda holds a bachelor's degree in mass communications, with an emphasis on journalism and advertising. Her professional background includes 21 years as a director of marketing, graphic design, and public relations professional. She is a professional photographer and artist, specializing drawing historic buildings and monuments. But the way you guys know her is Miranda is the founder, host, producer, marketing executive behind Ghost Biker Explorations, a world-recognized web series that highlights her travels on her motorcycle to historic and haunted locations around the country. She's been featured in numerous magazines and local newspapers. She's been a guest speaker at events and on podcasts and radio shows across the country. In fact, we met briefly, Miranda.
We did.
At the Haunting at the Mill, Paracon in South Carolina, put on by Brandon Cooper. And what a good time that was. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that as well. She's been on all those platforms. Ghost Biker Explorations is a popular series on Mix TV. In 2021, she co-founded the company History Highways and Haunts LLC and co-owns the historic Scott County Jail, where she is now, True Crime Museum and Paranormal Research Center in Huntsville, Tennessee. So let's bring her right on. Hello, Miranda.
Hey, Chris and Kristen. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's great to have you on.
Yeah,
And
finally.
sorry about the
meeting
big, long intro
Yeah.
there. And
No,
Something
now I
like
want,
one of those
I tell
words.
you, now I want Burger King,
Yeah, right. Get it while you can.
Does sound good.
right?
We'll be like the live stream that saves Burger King.
There you go.
I just like the picture. I mean, there he is.
Oh, nothing's creepier than the king.
Thank you. He is wicked creepy. I could never really watch those commercials. I'm like, oh my God, what are they doing? That thing's like so creepy. It really is.
It was a little freaky, But how are you doing? And our first question always is
Yes.
to all our guests. We ask everybody the same thing. Did you have a haunted childhood? Did you have any paranormal experiences growing up?
So, again, thank you for having me on, and I am doing well. I actually did not. I ended up getting into the paranormal based on more of the storytelling, folklore, local legend type side of things. I spent a lot of time with my grandmother who, when she passed, she was 95. And I spent a lot of time, she lived next door, and I would spend every evening down there listening to her tell stories about growing up in the Appalachian Mountains. And so she often shared a lot of folklore and talked about, as we call them around here, the haints and boogers, which would be the ghosts and the cryptids. So she spent a lot of time telling me about all of that. And then I spent as much time as I could in the libraries researching and listening to some of the old timers talk about some of their stories. And then also, I was a huge fan of unsolved mysteries. So anywhere I could gather information, that's what I like doing. And I did not have, I didn't grow up in a haunted house or anything like that, but the elementary school that I went to was haunted. And there was a murder that took place there. And so our librarian, she made sure that every student that went through the schools of that, or went through the halls of that school, knew the story about the doctor that was shot by the local deputy in town. So from as young as I can remember seeing if we could hear sounds of phantom laughter or phantom gunshots coming from the schoolhouse.
Wow.
Oh, that's super interesting. So the seed was kind of planted early, but you didn't necessarily have the experiences. You were aware of the stories.
Absolutely. I was very aware of the stories, but definitely didn't have any of the experiences. I know, a lot of the people that get into the paranormal are in there because they've either grew up in a haunted house or had experiences. Mine, like I said, was mostly that storytelling side. And then, of course, my dad, we would end up going out on the weekends and we would go back roads riding, and he was essentially sharing stories about ghosts of the past and talking about kind of the way things were, as he called it, olden times, and sharing those different stories. So kind of, I guess, slightly a different ghost, but nonetheless a ghost of the past. And so that's really where I fell in love with that, was from those stories that my grandmother shared. And then really, I always feel like if we don't if we don't take those stories in and talk to people and share those stories pass when those folks pass on. So that's really the side that I come from when I'm working on Ghost Biker Explorations, as well as the series, is really trying to share those stories and get that out there, make people aware of locations that maybe they're not aware of.
Wow. Well, I think that's great. I know, like, when you think about ancient history, we're really have just a small piece of it, and it's just what was written down, right? So much has been passed on with the spoken word, and from
Mhm.
generations, descending down. If we're talking about maybe Irish history, like the Scally, or the UK,
Yeah.
or even Egyptian, thank God they wrote things down. Or as Sumerians that we like to talk about in their cuneiforms, they were at least avid writers, but
Mhm.
much is passed on with the spoken word, and there are big gaps in history. So
Absolutely.
And also things are added to it when you talk about folklore and everything.
It
that's right.
is.
But
It
there's
is. And
always truth. There's always a little bit of truth to the lore.
it is. And, I can't really speak to other regions, but definitely here in the Appalachian Mountains, it varies from area to area of the mountain that you're from. Just the way that people did things over in one holler or one section of the mountain, they did it different in the other. And so yeah, I mean, it changes, and I assume it's probably very similar in other areas of the country. I mean, just around here, we're very much steeped in tradition, and so those stories, while they may be different depending on who you're talking to, they do tend to be very similar in nature when you sit down and really look at them as a whole.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the Appalachians are gorgeous, and we really got to get a little bit of that
Yes.
experience driving down to Pickens, South
Pickens.
Carolina from New
Yes.
England. And wow, God, it was so beautiful.
It
And they're
really
so
is.
big. Interesting is how many cavern systems are in the Appalachians.
Especially in Virginia alone, they have like this whole section of just like cavern here, cavern there, for miles and miles. It was really
it was like
cool.
every mile there'd be another billboard,
This one has
such
an
and such
elevator.
caverns. And
We're the best one. That's what it's really good.
Is especially there in Virginia and Kentucky. I mean, there are a ton there in those areas, and even here in Tennessee. And then, of course, a lot of people relate those even back to like the missing 411 or the missing in the national parks. They relate those to the cavern system that runs in the area. And there's big clusters even here in East Tennessee where they've had a lot of missing and disappearances in the area of those national parks in the Smoky Mountains.
absolutely. And that was the part of Tennessee we actually went through, which seemed weird to us. Like, trying to get to South Carolina, we went through a little of that. And you have those very steep hills as you're going through the mountains, and those truck ramps for the out of control trucks, so they can just kind of veer off
He
the
was all
highway.
freaking out.
Yeah, we drove, right? So it was supposed to be 14 and a half hours, was it? Something like that?
No, it was supposed to be almost 16 hours, and it took us 18.
Yeah, it took us,
Wow.
I think it was a little
Straight
more
there.
even, just driving straight. And yeah, my eyes were just falling out of my head. But I just haven't taken a long journey in a while.
It's definitely a beautiful area. I mean, it's only about 3.5 hours from here, but you ended up going through, I think, 4 different states, going through the rest of Tennessee and hitting North Carolina, Georgia, and South Carolina, or ending up in South Carolina. Just going those 3.5 hours, hit 4 different states.
Yes.
That's
yes,
right.
we
That's
did.
right.
Yeah.
Terry says the oh shit ramp.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
correct.
That's
Yeah.
what it
I was like, oh
was.
shit. And I'm like, wow, is that going to happen to us? Is somebody going to just
Just-
veer off the
Just
highway?
freaking, because we didn't sleep, and it was already what we were like, I don't know, 12 hours into the journey. So
We had left late, and it'd been a long time without sleep. So we were feeling it. Plus, we're not 20 anymore.
Exactly what we were saying when we got there. We're like, oh my God, we're not 20.
You yourself travel a lot, right? So you're probably more used to it and accustomed to taking these long journeys. And
Absolutely. Well, and I just want to say, one of the beautiful things about the Haunting in the Mill Paracon that I noticed that I really enjoyed was that Brandon did an amazing job of gathering folks from all around the country. A lot of the times when we do these podcasts, when we do these Paracons, they tend to be a little more regional. You may have 1 or 2 folks that travel across the country, but he had, folks there from New England. He had folks out from from out west, South Dakota, and I think that there were fewer people from the South than there were from the rest of the country. I think he did a really good job of representing all the areas around the country, and just such a great group of people, and really enjoyed listening to the speakers and meeting everyone.
As the Dakotas right there.
That's
Kimberly
right.
Horn, Scott Horn's out there.
And you're right,
Horn
Miranda.
Paranormal
Yep.
Research, plug.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful friends of ours. And they were there, and we were hanging out with them and camping, and we had a good time.
I think you got pictures with them, as a matter of fact.
I did.
You did. That's
I
right.
did. I got to meet them for the first time, and just wonderful people. Actually ended up going out to dinner with them the last night of the Paracon there.
Oh, you went too?
Yes.
We were invited, but we were so tired, Miranda. We were like, yeah, wow.
Yeah, we were trying to.
That's
pack
right.
up
I do remember the pictures.
Pack up our
now.
clam bake, as they say.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have clam bakes down there. Right? That's kind of a New England thing, I think.
More of New England, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely not in Tennessee.
Listen, isn't Becky Evans from Washington State? I mean, if you're talking about,
I'm not sure.
yeah,
I forget.
she drove from, I flew from Washington State to somewhere, and then she drove like 5
Oh
hours.
yeah, I
to
think
get there.
I think she was.
So we
telling us
had
that. That's
from
right.
one
Yeah, from
coast to
Washington.
the other in that
Yeah.
She
like
was
you were saying,
talking
and
about moving
you
us.
don't usually have that. So
No,
did
you really don't.
job.
He did a very good job, and really looking forward to to next year's.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's good stuff. But it seems like you have a thing for history, and you're talking to us from a haunted jail. And-
I am.
And
I
from-
am. I am actually sitting here at the historic and very haunted historic Scott County Jail. The jail was in operation there from 1904 until 2008, and it sat vacant until 2017 when Scott County gave the jail to the town of Huntsville. And then the town of Huntsville got a tourism grant where they came in and kind of cleaned it up, did a little bit of work to it, and they still really didn't know what they wanted to do with it. So it still sat vacant up until 2021, when my business partner, which I just saw her there in the audience a few minutes ago, Dr. Christy Sumner, and we formed History, Highways, and Haunts, and we approached the town to see if we could open it up as a true crime museum during the day and a paranormal research center where we could conduct paranormal research with different teams and stuff coming in, as well as doing different flashlight tours, guided ghost hunts, really making it accessible to the community and making it a stop on on different travels as far as with historical groups and such. So they were all about it. And so we opened in September of 2021. And so we've had, at this point in time, we've had just under 100 teams come in and investigate here.
Oh,
Wow,
that is
that's
awesome. And it's nice to have like a home base in a way, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody has their backyard haunted places they can go to, but what a cool thing to actually own one and run it.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's been very interesting transitioning from paranormal investigator to location owner. And we do rent the jail from the town, so we don't technically own it, but we do own the museum that's in here. And so it's been an eye-opening experience, and I feel we're able to really come in and conduct paranormal research because we're here up to 16 hours a day between myself and my business partner, because we're here during the day for the daytime tours, and we're here very often at night. So I feel we're able to really come in, get do different sessions and take the information that we learn from the session and apply it to the next time that we come in and do that. So we've really been able to get to know some of the resident spirits that are here, and also find ways that they really enjoy communicating.
Well, that's awesome. And have you found like a certain technique that works with these particular spirits, or in general, do you find certain things really work in places you visit repeatedly?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it depends on the night and depends on who you're talking to, but we have found that there's certain areas that they don't really like it when you take on like an interrogation questioning type method. There's one section of the jail here, if you come in and you treat it more of just kind of cutting up, joking, they tend to want to respond a little bit more. Also, music. We found that there's certain types of music that certain areas really interact with. We've even found certain songs that they like. There's one section
Interesting.
that Amazing Grace is a great trigger item, but we found they really like the pentatonics version of the song.
Wow.
And it's wild. And then there's other areas we found they prefer communicating with women in those areas, other areas that they don't really care for men in. We've even found on the second floor, the second floor is the trustee floor. So those cells are more dorm style cells. And we found, again, depending upon the night, if you go into the center of the building and where the rooms kind of basically when you're in the center, the dorm style rooms are around the edges, we found that sometimes they want you to stay in that area and they'll communicate from the rooms. Other times we've found that they want you to leave the tools there in the center of the foyer there, and each person get in a cell and communicate. And they're very vocal about how they want to communicate. And so we pass that along to our investigating teams that come. Obviously, we're like, do your own technique and method because you never know what you're going to discover. But these are some things that work for us. And so we found some of those to be pretty tried and true.
That's excellent. I think that's great. And we had kind of a similar thing. And this is something, and Kristen, we went like, oh, yeah, that's interesting because we've had a similar experience in the Conjuring house. When we went there, where like a certain song, and it had to be the right version, made a difference.
Yeah.
We used the trigger object, and I've got him here. He comes everywhere with us, right?
Clowny.
That's Clowny.
Oh, okay.
A lot of the people in the audience already know this story, so I'll be real quick. But we played Send in the Clowns, song from our youth, right? Of dating ourselves, but it really worked, and we were getting all kinds of like REM pod activity and like weird stuff, and it seemed like the REM pod was trying to sing it.
The REM pod with the antenna. I always do this, but it sounded like it was singing that song, and it got mad afterwards when we tried like the different one.
It didn't really work, right? So it only like we went back to the original, and like I guess it's not the original, but the one that we all know.
Yeah,
and that was the one that seemed to make a difference.
It was so weird, but it was so touching in a way as well because they literally tried to sing it on the REM pod.
It's an interesting concept to use music in an investigation.
Pentatonic
absolutely
made me think of that's frequency, so they like that frequency.
That's true because they are a cappella, and so they would be using the frequency. And we've even found, because we do a lot of experimenting with frequencies, and if you're using the God frequency 963 or using binaural beats, which binaural beats is the same kind of concept of the God helmet. And so, or at least the effects that it has on your brain. Yes. And we've found that playing certain things that does tend to trigger different types of activity. We were experimenting with the God frequency one night, and we turned it on, and we were in the Jerome Boyett cell area. And we actually so the way the upstairs area is it's the maximum security, and there are 3 different bullpen or 3 different cell blocks up there that each have a bullpen. And so we were in one of the smaller bullpens that had Jerome Boyett's cell and a smaller cell in there. And when we played that frequency, both of the REM pods started going off. One of them went off right after we started playing it and was trying to match that frequency, and right after the other started. So you had these 3 frequencies going. We had never experienced it, especially 2 REM pods going off at the same time as this one frequency. And so once we cut it off, they each went off. And then we even found when we went to the other bullpen, started playing it, you could hear talking down the hall and even had a cell door slam. So just experimenting with that, being here gives us the opportunity to be able to do that, for us to say, hey, after we close for the day, let's go up and just test this one experiment. You can do that because you're not pressed for time. But Chris makes a really good point there. Her comment there talking about the trigger technique transcending generations, dates, and times. That's exactly true. And why we like using that, because it's something that, music inspires and brings up so many different emotions. When you look at everything, even
That's right.
back to, protests and, patriotic songs, everything, it brings up all these different emotions. So why wouldn't it be? Plus, it's a universal language. It doesn't matter what language you're speaking. The music itself just works wonderful when it comes to a trigger item. So that's something, I've used ever since I started investigating. I know a lot of the investigators do, and it's something that we found here. Honestly, when we got the keys, we went up and we probably spent about 2 months just talking to the spirits, trying to find out what they like. And we did find, just kind of started playing music and just randomly asking, different genres of music. And our different tools started hitting on religious music, like old hymns. So we spent a lot of time just going through, playing different songs, finding what they liked. And it's really amazing when you do find those certain songs, and without hesitation, it seems like every time you get some type of reaction to the specific song you've played.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's so true. Music is just one of those things. It's almost like a phenomena with humans, like why we like rhythms, and it's just very natural to
Well-
fall into beats, and then we find these songs throughout our life that are just have like an impact, or maybe represent a period of time.
Mhm.
I think with Ascending to Clowns, we were theorizing that maybe it had to do with a breakup or something like that. And so if it's because it's a sad song, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe that really has some resonation wherever they are.
And you were talking about binaural beats, which we
Mm.
are familiar with as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we think we're big fans of that. One of the
Yeah.
things we've been experimenting with, and I give away our secrets, but we've talked about it before. In Pickens, actually, I built this little wonder box right out of this
Oh,
little
nice.
guitar amp. And what's cool about this guitar amp, it's got the guitar pedals and all that. And it's not a wonder box in and of itself, isn't a big mystery, a musical background. So I was like, oh yeah, well, that's just guitar effects, but it has a Bluetooth channel. So what
Okay.
we experiment with is mixing binaural beats in with, say, a spirit box,
Mhm.
through wonder box effects and that sort of thing. Mr. Greg Koss is out in our audience tonight. He runs a show called Metaphysical Crossings on Wednesdays on Facebook on Shadow Hunters Paranormal.
Yes.
Plug. Greg, plugging you, buddy. And he has us on in a rotation. And we love Greg in the show and everything. And what we're doing there is like double blind Estes method.
Yes.
That thing. So we're trying to kind of get into a trance state, or like a theta state, right away, right? Like
Okay.
on our camera, and just like, all right, let's do this and see what comes out of our subconscious or whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
And that's one of the things we've been experimenting with, and find that to be pretty good, to try to really get in that relaxed, kind of like letting it out. We're blindfolded, kind of thing. And we can run that through a headset. So it's another kind of little tool that's not on a paranormal website, but is useful. Bluetooth channel comes in handy.
Now,
Absolutely. I mean, just to hit on what you were saying, binaural beats. I mean, you can see how vibration affects water and how vibration affects things around. So why would it not affect, your brain? I mean, I use binaural beats for sleep. I use it for stress and anxiety relief. So just dealing with the different frequencies, and then seeing how it affects it within a paranormal location. If you're not getting, it may not be paranormal activity, but you're at least stimulating something in the air there that you're getting responses from, and that's unexplainable. So to me, it just makes perfect sense. And I love the idea about the double Estes method there.
Oh yeah, it's really cool.
It's
really cool.
interesting. It's very
send you a link.
interesting.
We're on it maybe once a month or something like that, or 5 weeks.
Mhm.
He's trying to use like the same people and rotate to see if we get similar
Yeah.
collaborations. Greg goes under and does it as well as other folks. We have moderators and all of that.
And it's all about being in that calm and relaxed state, I think. And I think that allows the person to be a better conduit for the putting that activity out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have a quick question since we're talking about tools and everything. Joshua Dixon asked, what is your take and thoughts on the ghost phone apps? Personally, he doesn't use them.
Great question. Personally, for myself, I don't. We do have a couple that we might use when we're doing the ghost hunts here at the jail. But for me, when I'm actually out paranormal investigating, I don't like to use them. I like to actually know how the apps are created. Now, I'm not one to sit there and limit the way that the spirits can communicate, because I believe that if a spirit wants to communicate through a phone, through a smoke detector, through what have you, they'll find a way to do what they want to do. So I'm not limiting, but I do like to know how the apps are created. If the apps use your microphone, some apps use GPS. So if you are here at the historic Scott County Jail and you're using an app that goes off your GPS, you might start getting jail terms. It may not be picking off the mic, but it's picking off in some way. So I just suggest on that, try things, but know what you're using, kind of know the background behind it. That's what we like to do. There's plus, like what Dr. Sumner says there, there are a lot of variables and other phones can set them off. So we just always recommend phones on airplane mode, use them to video, use them to record audio. But, and we don't limit if someone comes in for a guided ghost hunt or what have you, and they're using an app, because again, those are difficult because you're in a location for, say, 3 hours, you're leading people through. They're not necessarily going to sit there and just listen to or just ask questions if they're not a seasoned investigator, because they may not understand just how long it takes to sometimes get a response. But yeah, for me personally, I don't use them, but I say, just kind of know what you're using if you do. I have heard good things about some.
We like the airplane mode. There are a couple we'll experiment with, and we did put the phones in airplane mode. Some of the word bank ones are interesting. But what happens with that is they always got to say something. They have to keep talking, right? So you kind of run into this thing where it's going to say some word. Like we like necrophonics sometimes, but we know it's going to say something creepy no matter what.
Because it's that way.
Well, I always say, always look at your situation that's going on around you too, especially even when you're using like an Ovilus 5 that's not attached to an app. Look at the situation, because sometimes it will spit out just random words too, but look at your situation, look at what you're asking, look at what's going on around you, because, sometimes you have to look at the relevance of that, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. We agree.
We agree.
One of the ones we use has all the words are backwards, right? So the word bank is completely in reverse. It sounds a little like the Swedish Chef if you're not really having any experience. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
It kind of does a little of that.
We laugh at
but
it. But
we've also gotten some responses out of it that, whoa, wait a minute, that actually worked. And like you mentioned, we agree, like spirits will use anything.
They can use noises around us, like birds. We've had actually a bird in the background saying stuff. So it went with everything that was being said.
Our definition of pareidolia has dropped like the longer we've done this, because we're like,
absolutely.
There's definitely something going on here that, well, we can rationalize and say, well, that's just a bird, but wait a minute, bird kind of said something.
God damn it.
And it kind of goes to the other thing. And
well, and that's the thing too. A couple of the examples of evidence that I've got, if we play it later on, it's kind of the same way. I was using an Ovilus. I was also using the spirit box. I think you have to be aware of how you ask your questions, because like if I pick up, this tool right here, and I say, I start using leading words, trying to get them to say what's in my hand, then, it may lead the device to say that. But if you say, for instance, don't mention this, pick it up and say, I have something in my hand. What am I holding? And there's a couple instances, one in particular, one of the pieces of evidence that I've got, where they actually called it out on two devices. They called it out on the spirit box and also called it out on the Ovilus. And I never mentioned the tool. I actually opened it up from a bag. And also I was speaking specifically to a spirit who had used this tool. And so it was kind of fascinating because it wasn't related to, the Ovilus is independent from the phone. The spirit box is just picking up random radio stations or just picking up static. and it was actually answered what was in my hand. And so I think if you're careful with how you ask your questions, I think that can actually assist in, if you do decide to use an app or use something kind of different, just ask non-leading questions.
That's great. And I like that you had it confirmed on both devices,
Yeah.
which is big. Any kind of confirmation kind of certainly gives it
Yes.
more legitimacy.
Absolutely. You get something on one tool, that's one thing, but if you can get multiple tools to validate, then that's huge.
We had a similar thing happen in Wilson Castle with the drop from an ovulus
Mhm.
ball drop, and it was saying all on the. It was just
It had a mix of apps and different things, and
boxes.
they all kind of said the same thing, and that's just wonderful when that happens.
Poof, something happens.
Absolutely.
When something happens, we tend to feel that. We feel it like a vibration, a frequency, and then all of a sudden it's like 2 minutes of like where you are, like door slam, and then something happens and an EVP happens. And it's all like in that mishmash of like 2 minutes or a minute or something. It's very bizarre.
Yeah, string of events.
Yes.
Is that something you notice as well? That when a phenomena occurs, it seems to happen in these little segments of like everything starts going crazy for a little while and then it's gone. And it may come back. You know, you can, or you might be done for the night. And it was just that little 6 minutes of activity.
Yeah, we've noticed it here. I've noticed it on a lot of investigations. I love to use the EDI Plus box, and I like to always keep that with me anytime I'm investigating. For me, it kind of travels with me to each room. Like if I'm investigating in 5 different rooms, that's one that's always with me because I like to keep check of the atmospheric changes. And I've noticed that anytime the pressure changes on that, I tend to get more activity, more of like a string of activity happening. It's not always, but that seems to be the case a lot of the time, is the pressure will change more so than if it's like a hot or cold spike, or even when the humidity changes, it seems to be more of a pressure change. And I like to map that data. That's what I like about that tool, is it will map it out on the SD card. And you can go in and look, and you can actually cross-reference that with different events that you've had during the investigation to see if it actually lines up. But that's probably one of my absolute favorite tools, because I like to keep track of all the atmospheric changes in real time in the moment.
Yep. Terry says, interesting. Now must have an EDI.
Yep.
Must. It's a must have. And it's simple. It also has the EMF detector on it. And then it also has the geofoam on it that will detect vibration. So it does a lot of different, I think a lot of things that even a lot of investigators haven't even, scraped the surface of, that will do.
Yeah. And that's barometric pressure that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That is a cool device. We don't own one yet.
Yeah.
That'll
We're
probably
right with you,
change
Terry.
immediately, but we're familiar with it. And yeah, that's super cool.
Chris, my wife, is listening. He says they're awesome people.
Sold to the highest bidder. And Dr. Sumner says great tool as well.
I need to see about getting a sponsorship then.
Right?
All these people, you heard it here.
Yeah, we can do like one of those links so you get a percentage or something like that.
There you go.
Post that for you. Now you mentioned that. I think this is really interesting, that because of the nature of having to travel light on a motorcycle, what are the kind of tools that you like to take with you, and why?
So I'm typically a solo investigator. I either investigate by myself or I investigate with a videographer that travels with me. So, and I do collaborations as well, but I like to keep the numbers small. So for me, I always have my EDI Plus box with me. I do love my dowsing rods. Those, for me, I really like those because you don't have to worry about the battery drain. You can also ask very simple. I mean, they're very simple, and a lot of the spirits are at least familiar with them. You're not asking them to touch a light that they may not understand. They may associate light with candle. With this, you can ask your directional questions, your yes and no questions. So I always make sure I have those. I know that there's also a lot of controversy surrounding this, but I love the flashlights. And I always carry multiple flashlights with me, and treat it almost sort of like a game, and which we've been able to get some really interesting responses with that, where not only myself or not only the spirits communicate with the flashlights, but also myself communicating back and forth with them. And then also, well, and then two, if you can get temperature changes and stuff whenever you're getting changes with the flashlight, I like to be able to correlate those. And then, of course, just your general spirit box and REM pod. Just I keep a real light, kind of like a go bag of stuff that I'm able to just kind of sling over my shoulder there. And then I also carry static cameras as well. In those static camera packs, I've sort of created them to where there's a static camera, there is a audio recorder with pre-recorded questions, because I like to see whether they react different if I'm asking a question or if I've pre-recorded it and just have it in the room. Also a laser grid and a flashlight in with that, so that if I leave a static camera and I'm not actively investigating in that room, it gives them something that they're able to use. And then just any type of trigger item, I like to see what the location that I'm going to, and I like to pick trigger items specifically for that location.
That's great. And it's not as simple as I thought. I thought you were just going to say, well, I keep a recorder and my purse, and that's it. There's a few things in there.
Yeah.
There's a few things, but like I said, the little go bag, I mean, to try to document, but always have the recorder. And of course, each of the cameras have a static recorder with them as well.
Oh, that is super cool. I love that. And has the laser grid produced much for you as far as like shadows and those sort of things?
I have captured some in a few different locations. Yeah. For me, it just helps when you're sitting there watching hours worth of video. And these static cameras that I have, they're just little cameras that are battery powered. And so if I'm sitting there watching the cameras, I like to have the laser grid there just in case. It helps where your eye doesn't get lost. And there have been a couple times where I've gotten some interesting shadow activity from it.
Really?
Oh, that's so cool. Greg has a question for you. He says, Miranda, my EDI Plus is awesome. Did you do the download from the company? I'm assuming like a firmware update that just came out not that long ago. If so, is the printout worth it?
I have not done the new download. I'm always iffy and hold off a little bit to hear what other people think on that sort of thing, because it always seems like when something new comes out, there are bugs. I did have somebody investigating here at the jail that did the new printout, and they did not like it as well as the previous one. But I've kind of held off because I really like the way they do, or the way they did the earlier printouts.
Oh, that is very cool.
But I'm not discouraging, because I don't, it depends on what you like. But I probably will at some point. They'll probably end up making us.
But probably.
Yeah.
Scott says, Kim and I have toyed with the idea of taking the bike on an extended trip involving multiple investigations.
They should, for sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely should.
That would be the way to do it. If we rode, and I think I'm just too scared to do it.
Oh, I'll do it. I have no problem.
Yeah, the last time I rode a motorcycle, I was having every flashback from car accidents they could possibly have. I'm like, no.
Never been one. So no, I like the racing, so I like the bikes. I like everything. So.
Well, for me, it just made perfect sense. I pair my investigations like I do my motorcycle riding. I think that they really parallel each other really well, because I feel like either way, whether you're doing an investigation or getting on the bike, you've got to be in the right frame of mind. And so it's, for me, it helps to center me, but also, you've got to plan for it. You've got to be in the right frame of mind. You've got to watch out for others around and everything going on. You need to be aware of your surroundings and be able to try to control as much as you can. It's the same kind of thing with the investigation. Trying to keep control of that environment and be aware of everything, whether it be noise, light, or whoever's out in the area, or even just knowing the history. I think that you can really parallel the two. So for me, it was just a natural fit of, combining the passion of motorcycle riding with my passion of history and the paranormal.
You mentioned at the front that you used to go riding with your dad to different places. Was that motorcycle riding?
It was not. It was not. My parents were never really into motorcycles and kind of were not really happy at the very beginning when I started riding. But it was mostly riding in an old truck, on back roads. And yes, I mean, we would spend every opportunity. He liked taking me all around the area, sharing about how, these certain areas that are now nothing more than just a little sign on the side of the road. But back in the day, whenever the county or community was being established, they were big boom towns, and so either big mining communities or timber mills, or they had a big purpose, and there would be thousands of people that lived in that area. And now it's even hard to fathom more than a family of 5 or 10 people living in that area. So he shared a lot of those stories, talked about a lot of the way things used to be. And that just, I wish now that I had had recorders with me whenever I was traveling with him, because you try to take it all in and try to remember it. And he's since passed. And, I wish there were questions I could ask.
We
Um,
understand. Yes.
yeah. And so for me, that was such time well spent, doing that, because now I never dreamed, you mentioned at the beginning of the show, my background is in marketing, and I spent 21 years in corporate America. I never dreamed that my job would be curating a museum and traveling around talking about the paranormal, traveling around talking about history, and really bringing people in and introducing them to history. So I really value that time that I spent with my dad and my grandma hearing these stories. And I look back now and just wish I could take more in, because you
We
just
could
never know
definitely
where you're going to end up.
Both of us can definitely relate to that. Yes.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful, and it's wonderful you get to spend that time together and
Yes.
see some of that history, because towns do come and go
They do.
in America, and it's an interesting thing, and there has to be some sort of imprint left by the people that were there
Yes.
before, and emotions hang around at least residually.
Residuals.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I always tell people when I'm speaking, is that, if you go out on your motorcycle or go out in the car, just pay attention to everything that's going on around you, because all of these little towns, they have some type of story to them. And so I do a lot of haunted motorcycle rides here in the area, and I've partnered with Harley Davidson on some in different areas of the country, and we've done haunted rides. And so we don't always get to stop at the places, but I'll plan the route, and then I'll do a presentation about what the places we're going to be going through, and some of the stories about some of these places that you would never even know there was a town there is phenomenal, about how they started and what led to their demise. So I always tell people, it's like, yeah, the big commercial locations, yeah, we want you to come to places like the historic Scott County Jail. We're not a big, huge location or anything, but you don't have to go to a commercial location to have an experience. If you just close your eyes, touch anywhere on a map, you're going to find somewhere that anywhere you touch on there, you're going to find somewhere that's got a story that may just be locally known, but you may look out and it be somewhere that's regionally known. So they're out there. It just doesn't have to be big and grand. It can be something as simple and small as just a spot in the road.
No, that's so true.
Absolutely.
They put roads through everything. I mean,
Yeah.
they got to remember, there were a lot more people here before they started building up and everything, and putting roads and highways through the Appalachians right there too as well.
Absolutely.
They all have history.
Mm-hmm.
Sure do. And like Kristen mentioned earlier, there's always a little truth to the folklore.
Mhm.
You hear a lot of the same folklore, and I'm sure you've seen this in your travels from
Mhm.
town to town. And it's like the woman in white story. And we talk about spirits perhaps playing roles. They almost step up to these roles because you hear such similar stories.
Mm-hmm.
The little boy in the graveyard, one of which we encountered.
Seems like there's always a crybaby bridge somewhere. There's
That's
always,
right.
yeah.
Baby Bridge. That's
I
right.
can name about 4 states that I've gone to that has a crybaby bridge in it. And, and there's always a woman in white. There's always, the kids that are pushing the car, that will leave the handprints on the car.
Yes.
There's a lot of interesting stories, and I'm always fascinated, and that's what I like to go in and see if we can get some type of validation to these stories. There's some reason that they started, whether somebody was traveling and heard it somewhere else, and they kind of brought it to their area. You never know, but it is interesting how you do seem to find these different stories all around the country. They do have their similarities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's like they know it as well. And perhaps they're like trigger objects for us, right? I mean,
Exactly.
especially when we
Very
get,
true.
Yes. I like that.
children or, broken-hearted bride or whatever it might be.
Jumping off a
Absolutely.
cliff, they
For
got that too.
the audience that doesn't know, what is a crybaby bridge?
Yes.
We're familiar with the term, but
Yeah.
Well, a lot of them that the ones that I've seen, the two that come to mind is the one in South Carolina and the one that is in Alabama. And I think there's one in Kentucky too, where the ones I'm familiar with was where, whether it be a family member, a dad, a mom, threw a baby over a bridge, and you can hear the baby crying whenever you go. Whether some of the stories say you either stop on the bridge, or some of them you have to walk across so many times, say something in particular. But the ones I've heard of is typically a baby that has been thrown over the bridge by a family member.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It happens in wells as well. If
Yeah.
that makes sense. But yeah, wells.
Yeah, our friend Chris Balzano has written about a few in his books that
Yes.
folklore and haunted areas, and he's been on here quite a bit over the years. In fact, we're due to talk to him
Yes,
again.
we are.
And we've talked about the Crybaby Bridge and some other stuff I wasn't aware of until he told us like how prevalent they are.
Yeah.
There are
Is-
quite
Is there some up in your area as well?
not as many. He's actually from Florida now, but
Okay.
he's from our area.
He's from our
Rhode
area in New
Island.
England, and
He is the guy that brought Puckwudgie into the
Puckwudgie.
Yeah.
into the talking space of the paranormal,
Mhm.
and he
Free
has some
Town Forest.
amazing books.
Yes.
Yeah, that is fascinating. Have you found any truth to the legends that people talk about when you have investigated them? Do you encounter the same things as maybe the oral tradition is carried on?
Great question. One of them that I can definitely speak to, and I did end up highlighting it in my series. I actually highlighted it in episode 1 of season 1, is the Bleeding Mausoleum, which is there in Cleveland, Tennessee. It's also known as the Crag Miles Mausoleum. And so there's been legend forever about this mausoleum that's there at St. Luke's Church. It's the only mausoleum that's there in the churchyard, and there are 5 people buried in it. They are family members. And so it starts with the story of little Nina Cragmiles, who was riding with her grandfather, who was a local physician. They were riding in his wagon. And as they came upon a train crossing, a train comes, the horse rears up, throws little Nina Cragmiles from the carriage, and she ends up getting killed by the cow catcher there on the train. And so her dad, he was one of the founding members there in Cleveland. And so he ended up, because she did pass away on St. Luke's Day, he built St. Luke's Episcopal Church and built this mausoleum out of Carrara marble there in the cemetery, or there in the churchyard. And so about a couple years after she passes, they have a baby. The baby only lived for a couple hours. He didn't even have a name. They end up putting him, he passes away, they put him in the mausoleum. And then about 7 or 8 years after that, John himself ends up slipping, hits his head, dies of blood poisoning. He's in the mausoleum. Well, his wife ends up living for, I think, about 20 or 25 years after that. At that point, cars are invented. She's remarried, and she's stepping out of her house. And once she steps out of her house, she ends up getting hit by a car and passing away as well. So the story goes that with each body that was put into the mausoleum, these red spots formed on the mausoleum. And they got bigger and they got deeper. And so when it rains, it looks like the mausoleum's bleeding. And it's interesting because yes, they can, there are deformities in the marble. And when you go, it truly does look like it's bleeding. But they always said that if you walked around the mausoleum around midnight, on certain times, and you ask and you said, Nina, Nina, come out and play with me, that she'll come out and play. And that's been the story just as long as I've lived there, and as long as other friends who are from the area would talk about. And so the mausoleum it's beautiful, and so but it's also in the middle of town, so you do have to investigate it late at night. And so I went on 3 different occasions, investigated there, and got some really interesting activity. Had some great dowsing rod responses. Actually ended up, I had a recorder placed right inside the gate right there at the door. I also was wearing a mobile recorder on me myself, and was able to get some interesting responses audibly on the recorder there coming from inside the mausoleum. And so on the second night, after walking around and asking Nina to come out and play, I did a dowsing rod session back in behind where the playground is, and ended up getting what sounded like a child singing, almost singing like a nursery rhyme kind of thing. It was really creepy, and I did hear it in the moment, so it was a disembodied voice. I didn't know what I was hearing until I went back to review it. And interestingly enough, I've not put this little piece of evidence out, and I should. We did a like a viewing party for the night of the episode when it released, and we had about 9 people there at my friend Josh's house. And so we decided after it was over, we were going to walk over to the mausoleum. And so we all go over there. We march around the mausoleum 7 times, ask Nina to come out and play. And as soon as we did, we asked Mr. Cragmiles if he would mind Nina coming out and talking to us. And right after that, we caught, and we didn't hear it in the moment, but when we went back and listened on the recorder, we catch this little girl that says, hello. And so we didn't know it until we went back and listened. And we were probably only there, maybe like a 10-minute burst session to see if we could get any type of communication. A lot of that is really challenging whenever you have a lot of people, but none of us heard it, but that recorder caught it, and we were pretty amazed. And several of the people who were kind of skeptical was like, okay, I don't know who that was. I don't know where that came from, but exactly. Yeah. So that was one that, whether it's paranormal or not, I don't know, but that mausoleum definitely has an interesting vibe to it. It truly has an interesting history and story behind it. And it's definitely got something unexplained that does seem to happen whenever you go and participate, I guess, in the local legend.
In the folklore, right?
Yeah.
Run around it so many
It's
times.
weird because we actually have something like that. Is it the Houghton Mansion that happened?
We have a
to?
lot of stuff like that.
It's
Kristen,
almost
actually.
just like that, though.
It's
where
Spider Gates. There's the cemetery.
horse reared up,
and there's what is his name in Spider Gates? Because that's a big one. People might even be familiar with that. You're supposed to run around the tombstone 10 times.
That's Earl. That's
yeah,
Marmaduke Earl.
Marmaduke.
Supposed to run around his grave 10 times.
10 times at midnight, and he will appear.
Yeah.
And it's one of those places where people leave a lot of trinkets and coins.
Change.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's one place there. It's the same thing. It's a park, and they say there was a person who supposedly or allegedly hung themselves in this gazebo. And they say if you go around that so many times and ask questions, that you will have, they say you'll have a car accident, or the people will be met with a dark fate. And so I'm sitting here and I'm like, as much as I would love to test that, that's great, but I am very superstitious and I am on a motorcycle, so I don't want to tempt fate. But it is interesting how you do get these stories like that. That's supposed to, I guess in some kind of weird way, you could say it's like conjuring activity by, participating in that. But it is fascinating how they get the thing, okay, run around it so many times and say this certain thing.
A ritual repetition. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
a ritual, and people, we're drawn to rituals. Rituals
Yeah.
are
Well,
part of the human experience.
background.
You know?
Yeah.
It could be something like necromancy on my shirt, or it could be as simple as running around a tombstone or a mausoleum. It's so interesting. I know George mentions, he says, I keep hearing stories where a spirit stays around its earthly remains. I'm wondering why that is. And that's a great question, George. They do. There are haunted cemeteries, absolutely, and
Just haunted everything. Houses, because they don't want to leave.
places. What do you think?
I definitely think so. Growing up here in East Tennessee, we were not at a shortage of cemeteries to ghost hunt. And I know it's kind of different in different areas. I was not aware that cemeteries closed, until I started traveling elsewhere and didn't know you weren't supposed to be in them after dark. But because around here, there's so many different family plots, there's so many different cemeteries that might be on the side of the mountain that are truly forgotten about because the family may pass on and there's nobody there to caretake it. Yeah, and so I do believe I've ran across several very haunted cemeteries. I don't necessarily believe that the person, this is just me personally, is staying there with their body, but I tend to believe that it's about the energy that's displaced within that cemetery. If you think of all the people that are buried in there and all the people that come to visit, that, all the tears that were shed there, all the memories that people come into a cemetery with, good or bad. That's why I tend to believe that a cemetery itself tends to be active. I think there's some instances where a person may go back to where their remains are. I don't necessarily feel they stay with that. Like I said, that's just me, but I think anything is possible. I just tend to think it tends to be a little more of the energy that's put into the location, because those in funeral homes. I mean, just the intense energy. Because most of the time you're seeing people that you maybe haven't seen in years, family reunions, if you will. They're not under good circumstances, when you see them. And these may be people that you either never see again or that you see only at a funeral or a wedding. So just the emotion that goes into those grounds is incredible.
Absolutely.
That's right. It's
We
like the
agree.
last place where your family convenes, and sometimes, like you said, there's people there that maybe that person wouldn't have really wanted to be there. There's an emotional imprint surrounding that.
Yes.
There's
Mhm.
something very sacred about burial places in general. I think
Yes.
that just maybe goes. It's bigger than humans. Elephants have a burial ground, right? I'm sure certain other animals do as well. And the idea of dying in a certain place and all that, or passing, there's probably something very inherent on a low level to just being in.
Absolutely. And with that mausoleum, the fact that her dad was so distraught of losing his daughter at such a young age, but he also had this pride by building that church and building that mausoleum specifically for her. You can only imagine just the emotion he put when he was building this, and then to have himself and his family in there. He's got this sense of pride because he's wanting to he's proud that he's building a place for her body to, because I think it was like 3 years after the mausoleum was completed at that point. And then just the sadness that he would feel, from losing her. So it'd have to be such a mix of emotions that would experience. And so when you think of the stone and stuff absorbing that and taking that in,
Yes.
there's definitely going to be some strong residual, at least, energy that's there. And I would say definitely some intelligent as well.
Absolutely. We agree with that, because when you say about the stone, it's like animism. We talk about stones have not a soul, but feelings. The
Mhm.
energy would be like where you are. You have a stone
Mhm.
building. Exactly.
Yes.
So everything would be absorbed.
all
Yes.
the stone. So the building that we're in, if you've not ever seen, if you look up the historic Scott County Jail, it's a very impressive building. It's a sandstone castle that's here in the middle of the mountains of East Tennessee, and sandstone is very high in the element of quartz, or the mineral quartz, and so we're completely surrounded by that. We're also surrounded with all the iron bars that are in here.
Oh, the
And
iron-
then New River runs right back in behind the jail here. There's a nice little waterfall back here. So there's a lot of things that's going to be holding and conducting that energy in just in this location itself.
Absolutely.
Iron is very magnetic.
And water alone,
I think
geez.
magnetism may also play a role. Kim says it's all necromancy, isn't it, in some way? And this is something that we say a lot, because if you're asking any kind of spirit, the disembodied spirit, somebody who's passed on, to do something for you, like speak into your radio or speak through your spirit box, that is by definition necromancy. And there's little wink wink nudge nudge with the shirt, although we kind of like those things too, and it's nothing new. That dates back to as far as civilizations go that have recorded anything, to cave art, to Sumerian people used to write it in uniforms. Like Mesopotamia, there's a gentleman named Irving Finkel who translates those cuneiforms, and what they actually say in regards to necromantic practices is super interesting. Great stuff. I love this. It's all energy and vibrations.
Yes, Sam.
To circle back to a comment George had made, who asked that original question, he said something about apps. Let me see if I can find it real quick, because that was pretty funny. And he says, I have a friend, she really likes the apps, me not too much, but her necrophonic said clearly, hey George, so I guess some apps work.
Well, they can use anything.
They can use anything.
They can use anything.
It's a funny thing to get from the app itself.
Right.
Very cool. Very cool.
I just don't like to limit. I mean, I like to tell people, we're in a field that requires you to have an open mind. And so I think we've got to be, I think we have to be very strict with our practices and all of that. But I do think, you got to keep an open mind, because I think spirit communication happens a lot more than what people realize. We just aren't really paying attention, aren't really listening. That's probably, in my opinion, why there was such a high spike in activity right after, the pandemic and everybody was home.
Yes.
People were home and they were listening. So again, you can't limit. You just have to really look at your circumstances and what's going on around you, and again, know how those things work.
Absolutely. Keeping an awareness of your environment is just a good thing to do in general. And listen for those things. Maybe that knock in the attic that happens every night at a certain time isn't, just the wind, and these sort of things that people noticed after the pandemic, like you mentioned, when they were home more.
We read that article. It was
during the day.
It's like so many people noticed that their houses were haunted.
People were home much more and nothing to do other than listen to the squeaks and creaks of their house. And so, I think that either they're just really getting to know their home, or there really is something out there that, they just maybe didn't pay attention to because they were lost in the hustle and bustle of getting gone to work.
Every day. Yep.
That brings up a good point. How do you feel about daytime investigating?
I like daytime investigating. To me, I've always investigated based on opportunity, whether it was day or night. Here, we get the exact same, I don't want to say the exact same things, but we get activity day or night. Sometimes it's different. Sometimes it's more residual during the day, because you've got your daytime activities going on. I do like to investigate at night, just because at that point, if you're investigating in a town, it's quieter at that point, or it's, you can control for your environment at that. But I've had a couple investigations that I've highlighted on my season that were done during the day, and they're definitely not as creepy when you're doing it today, if you're trying to go for that creep factor. But you can definitely get some really interesting activity. And I would have to say that some of my best stuff has actually been
Uh-huh.
captured during the day.
We would
Us
agree.
too.
Wholeheartedly, yes.
Hmm.
I think some of our very best phenomena occurred, middle of the day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
Mhm.
you're right. I mean, I think investigating at night in a dark house by an IR light,
Mhm.
there's something about that that's just certainly scary, and it brings about
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, and there's a reason why.
Right.
Yeah, there's a reason why we blindfold, during an Estes method. I mean, it's to take away your sight, but to heighten your senses and stuff. That does definitely help put yourself in that sensory deprived state. And things are just different. We're in a more heightened state anyways when it's dark. If I'm here in the jail after dark and up on the upper floors with the lights off, I mean, I know this jail like the back of my hand, but things look different, things sound different, things are creepier at night. And it does tend to heighten yourself because you're in that more heightened fear state. But I mean, for me, just some of the best solid evidence that I've captured, especially when it comes to EVPs and some shadows, even because if you're in a house that kind of has that ambient light, I don't like to investigate just in the dark. So even if it's nighttime, I like to have some ambient light just so you can capture your shadow figures better.
What do you think about shadow figures?
Shadow
Um,
Shadow people
Shadow
in
people?
general?
those that might wear hats like a scally.
You
I
mean
think they're I
yeah,
think they're fascinating.
you do?
I've
See?
I do. I had Mike Ricksecker on my show, and he had some really interesting theories about those that made a lot of sense to me. I don't, and this is just again me personally, I don't believe a lot of people tend to think that the shadow figures are all dark and negative. I don't think that necessarily. Could they be? Yes, but also, anything has the potential to not necessarily be positive. But I tend to think one of the ways I heard them described was that but it's kind of how we're seeing it. Our eyes may not be able to
Thing with eyes.
comprehend,
Yes.
yeah, to actually be able to see the color or the brilliance of all the colors. And so it may be a translation type thing, the way that our eyes and our brain are translating what we're seeing. It could also be a vibration level that you're not on the same vibration as what you're seeing, and that's how you're seeing it. His Some of his theories really made a lot of sense to me.
Oh yeah, that
They,
um
they
stuff
did.
that
We watched the documentary as well.
okay.
he talks about it, and yeah, we kind of agree wholeheartedly, right? Like when we talk about the dimensional thing, where
Mhm.
like frequencies,
Yes.
and you're just kind of like maybe a little bit in, and you
Mhm.
come across as a shadow or something like that. Actually, I think his documentary is called The Shadow Dimension, right?
I
Yeah,
don't remember.
that is
I'm
what
sorry.
it is, and a lot of it featured the Conjuring House, which right down the street. So Mike's great. He does have some great stuff on that, and like seeing
Yeah.
percent of your human perceptions. You only see a certain bound of the EM band. We only hear a certain amount. Yeah, we love that because I think that really is true. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a lady, and she actually explained it to me before I heard Mike's theory on it, and it actually really made a lot of sense. Because being an artist and knowing, kind of how we see and what color is made up of and what colors are lack of color. She was telling me she wanted me to actually draw a vision that she had, and the vision that she had was when, and unfortunately she has since passed away herself, but she had a vision the day that her dad passed away. He was in the hospital, and she said she was praying and meditating and said that someone had she just got a feeling that something was going to happen. And so before her mom called and told her what happened, she had this vision that she saw her dad laying in a hospital bed, and he was surrounded by 6 shadow figures. Now, when we hear that, we tend to think, okay, what is he doing being surrounded by these dark figures? And she said she saw them lift him up. He was very limp, when they lifted him up, legs and arms hanging down. And then after they raised him up, he actually, raised up like he was reaching toward the heavens. And she said she then saw, excuse me, his face smiling and rejoicing. And then saw it kind of moving toward her, his face. And so right after that, she got a call from her mom that her dad had passed away. And so she was an older lady, and she said that one of the things, she had been working on, she had the vision of sight. And so she had actually been working with another lady who was helping her to develop this. And so she was actually kind of troubled by the dark shadow figures. And the lady described it as, she said, our eyes cannot see the brilliance of the color of the folks that were lifting him up. And that really resonated with me, because it's like, of course, it would show up black, because that would be all colors combined. Right. The black would be, whereas white would be the absence of color. And exactly. So that made perfect sense, and actually really made my perception of shadow figures change, because maybe that is the case. Maybe our eyes cannot comprehend and actually truly see what maybe animals or somebody else that can, or something else that can see in that spectrum is actually seeing.
Exactly.
Like
I have
medium.
Such a thing with this. Yes, with the eyes. And I like that Mike came out with that. Mike Rickettsegger came out with that and said, all that about the eyes. I'm like, this is so true. Been doing it for years. I've been saying it for years. I'm like, we can't comprehend anything.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Super interesting. You were going to show us some data from the jail. Maybe we could get into a little of that.
Yes, and I apologize. I don't know why my throat started tickling right when I was talking about that. Yeah, I have several different pieces of evidence that I can show. Do you want me to set it up first, or play it and then set it up?
Oh, there's actually, before we get started, Henry Lee says, good evening from the old Gilchrist County Jail.
I actually have a piece of evidence from old Gilchrist County Jail that I can show as well.
Excellent.
So the first one that I'm going to show, since we're talking about the jail here, is something that was captured on our security camera footage right here one night. So when we have paranormal teams here, we stay in the gift shop. We say we're on site but out of sight. And so the team had left. They left about 3:00, and it was about 3:30 in the morning. I'd gone up and cleaned up after the team. And so I had come back down, and I stepped out into the hall right outside of the gift shop, which is just right across from the door here. And I heard this deep, rich hum. It went for about 3 seconds. It coughed, and then, or excuse me, not coughed, cleared its throat, and then went for 3 more seconds. And it really kind of shocked me when I heard it, because it was so loud and so unexpected. And so I continued what I was doing, and I went back into the gift shop to get my stuff to leave. And I ended up calling my business partner, and I said, hey, when you go in the next morning, pull the security cam footage and see if we captured this man. Told her the time to look at and see if we caught him. So she told me, she was like, we did not catch the man humming. However, we did catch 2 voices. And so the one I'm going to play here, it will play it through. Let me see if it will. Let me pull this up here. Trying to figure out how to pull it from. I've got to actually pull it up.
No worries. Take your time.
Okay. So let me see if this works here. Well, okay, here we go. So it's going to play it through 3 times. We do have it subtitled with what we believe it's saying. It is 2 distinct voices. So I'll play it and then explain further afterwards.
All right, it's coming up now. Let me add that to the stream. Well, I'm not sure if sound is coming through. There might be a box to check off.
Let me see. Okay, let's try here. Let's see if this works.
She is.
It's got the share audio tab. When I go to just do the window, it doesn't.
I know StreamYard can be a little tricky when we do it this way.
Let's see here. Yeah, it only gives it whenever I do, if I was sharing it from the website here. Let me try this. I'm going to unhook my mic, see if that makes a difference, because it may be playing it through that audio.
Okay, so let me see. Have it. Yeah, unfortunately, we're not getting any audio, at least not in our headset. I'm not sure if it's in the stream. It's okay if we don't. Would this be on your YouTube channel by chance?
Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, that's okay. It's all right, Miranda. I know StreamYard's a little weird. Do you have it on your YouTube by chance? No, I'll try it from my. I can see it, no problem, but I don't hear any audio, and I don't see a
Can you hear me at all?
Yes. Yes.
I can hear you.
I can't hear you for some reason.
Uh-oh.
Kitty.
Let me.
Squirrel.
Okay, I think
How about now?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Could you hear the audio at all on the?
No, they're
Well,
saying
unfortunately, we could not.
Okay.
That is okay. It happens. StreamYard is still like a little quirky. I know when I share anything off of like web pages and stuff, there's like a box, and if I miss it, sometimes I'll check.
When I hit the share button, it actually let me try this one. Let me try this one way. It'll let me do video file. Okay, I think this is going to work this way. I was sharing the screen there. Let's try this. Let's see.
They're like your kitty.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Sally.
Sully?
Sally, as in a cellmate. Sally.
Oh, okay, Sally.
I love it.
Okay, see if this works this time.
Yes.
Yes. Wow.
So that's one of the things we often get here at the jail is we have very intelligent spirits that are very aware of the situations that's going on. And so I believe that while I heard that humming taking place up on between the second and third floor on the stairwell, that we believe that the people, it's two distinct voices, and one says, "There she is," and the other says, "Not so loud next time," telling the spirit not to be so loud. So we do get a lot of common things like that, responses that for the spirits, they seem to be aware and very intelligent. They'll talk about what you're wearing. They'll talk about the articles on the wall. It's pretty wild.
That is great. And yeah, just clear EVPs coming through there. I turned the volume up as much as I could. It probably seemed a little progressively louder out there, but clearly based on reactions in the audience, they could hear it as well. And those words were super clear.
Yeah.
Just that out of the blue.
Yeah, and that was captured on our security cam. And the security cameras do not have as good audio recordings as our recorders do. So to be able to capture that as clear as it did was really impressive to us.
Kim says it sounds like they're saying it because Spirit doesn't want to get caught.
Yeah, that's what we believe as well.
Sonia says very clear conversation. Yeah, that was really cool. And I like that because you're not really investigating, or maybe you are. But you're not really asking
you're
questions
right there,
just out of the
There
blue.
she
No, I was actually, and that was after our very first investigation that had been conducted here, at least the first team that we had come in, and so we were real impressed with that. And it's one of those things where it's like, wow, you want to go back and listen to all your security camera footage because who knows what you're missing. But yeah, that was, and to be able to go back, Chris, when she called me, she was like, we didn't catch that hum, but we did catch these two voices. And she said, and there was nobody else in the building. And I said, no, there was no one else. They had been gone about 30 minutes because I'd been cleaning up and had come down and was literally packing my stuff up to go.
Oh, that is super cool. Super cool.
I've got a variety of other pieces, and you tell me. I have a few more from the jail. I have a few more from some of the places that investigated that were highlighted in my series. So you just let me know what we got as far as time.
You've got some time if you want to run a couple and
okay. Be plugged in.
And I gotta go be dad and team at work.
So this next one is this was captured at the Grand Old Lady Hotel, which was in Balsam, North Carolina. And this was a hotel that was built in the early 1900s. It was a stop on the train system there. And so a lot of folks in the early 1900s would go there. They would ride the trains there to the mountains of North Carolina, and then they would end up spending their summers there at this hotel. The hotel was very rustic when I stayed there. On this particular night, it was part of a weekend investigation. The first night, it was myself and my videographer. I believe I highlighted that episode, season 3, episode 1. And then on the second night, I was there with Soul Sisters Paranormal. And so they were conducting their investigation. We were actually sleeping. It was in a room that was, it was like a room where it had a big bed in one room and like a suite, if you will. And so I was sleeping in the outer room. We had just been talking about the next day, how we were all packing up and going to be leaving. So like I said, I was in one room. Christy and her twin sister were in the back bedroom. And so we had laid down to go to sleep, and we left the recorders going while we were there. So this was the voice that was captured while we were in there sleeping. Did y'all hear that?
Yep.
What did that sound like?
Sound like a man's voice.
That's what I thought.
Wow. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, one of the things that I'll do on some of these investigations is I do like to sleep at the location if I can, and I always leave the recorder going. And what I'll end with here, I'm going to play a few others, but what I'll end with is one where I slept at Brushy Mountain Prison and got some of the best stuff, because I feel like we get some different things when we're in that sleep state.
Absolutely. We talk about that a lot. Hypnagogic and hypnopompic states. Yes.
Yes. This next one I wanted to play. So this was highlighted. This was the Fentress County Jail, which was highlighted in episode 1 of season 5, my last season. And this is the one that I was talking about that I caught the same thing during the on the obelisk as well as on the spirit box. It's a slightly longer session, but it kind of shows how everything is tying together. And so it's interesting because I hadn't mentioned this tool at all. One of the guy that I was speaking with, he was known for he was an escape artist, and so he had been on the FBI's most wanted list for, I believe, 4 years while he was hiding out in a cave. And when he was, because he had escaped from jail, he was hiding out, and while he was there, they did find out that he was this amazing artist, and he had painted a bunch of, I think, like 300 pictures of Christ out there. I mean, he had painted a lot of pictures. So
Wow.
he was an artist, and I'll go ahead and play this. It pretty well speaks for itself here.
All right.
Billy Dean, did you serve time in this jail? Did you kill a law enforcement officer? Did you injure some officers? All right, so any way you can. Can you see what I'm holding up? Okay, I can hear you back there. Can you touch that little red light? Can you see this item I'm holding up? I'll have to go back and listen. I don't know what that said. I thought it said it's mine. I heard you were a fantastic artist. I don't know why I feel drawn to this last cell. All right. Got this tool again. Last week, you used it to say a few words. Bar. Yep, we've got jail bars around us. We're in a cell. Is this your cell? Upon and ceiling. It's very low ceiling. This is a very, very small cell. We must have done something bad to get in here. How many people were in here with you? Can you tell me what this is?
Oh, wow. I heard that.
Holy crap.
Billy Dean Anderson? If you're in this area, can you tell me what this is? Can you see it? Paint.
Are you serious?
Holy crap, it said paint.
Oh, that was awesome.
Miranda, that was amazing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, to me, it honestly blew my mind, and thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Yeah, I have no explanation of how, they were able to get that on both devices. We did another session in there. It's a longer EVP. I won't play at this point, but we have it in the video where they kept wanting to play a game. And so I took cards and set those cards there. And I told them to either name the suit, the color, or the number on the card as I would pull it up. And so we played 3 different hands, 5 cards each hand, and they were able to identify 2 of the cards. They called out the numbers, and that was in the first hand where it was lifted up. And mind blowing. I mean, so clearly whoever was in there was able to really see what we were doing. They were able to see us.
Yeah, it's so interesting. They can see you and you can't really see them, but you're
Yeah.
within their spectrum.
Exactly.
Well, right?
Absolutely. And the last one I'll play, this one, it's probably some of my best EVP evidence that I've captured, and I captured it while I was sleeping. And so this was at Brushy Mountain State Prison, which is known as the end of the line. I was sleeping in the hole, and this was actually before the. Now the location is set up as it's a tourist attraction. You can investigate there. They have a distillery there. They also have uh, uh, a restaurant that's there. But at the time when I investigated, they hadn't even built those buildings there. And so it was part of a 2 night investigation. And so we do highlight this in season 2, episode 1, called End of the Line. And so I was actually there that night by myself. The 2 girls who ran the paranormal, they were there in the office area. So I decided I was going to sleep there. The whole area is where they put the worst of the worst, and you're literally walking down basically into a hole where the person will be kept. It's pitch black. I laid down about 8:30 in the morning, and I slept for 3.5 hours. And so during that 3.5 hours, I caught what was probably 3 minutes and 15 seconds of some of the best EVP evidence that I've ever captured, both residual and intelligence. So I'll go ahead and pull that up.
Excellent.
Sally.
You know, right? Sally, Chris was saying Sally.
In the hole about 8:30 in the morning. Gonna sleep for a little bit.
And it was just basically me, a camera, and my audio recorder.
Wow.
Yeah. What's interesting about this laundry is there's no power in the jail period, and it has that distinguishable laundry sound.
Wow.
This one is a little more confusing to me. This went on for 5 minutes, like a ball bouncing.
Okay.
I can hear it. I could hear it.
Yeah. It does. Sounds like a tennis ball. set.
Yes. I talked to a former corrections officer, not at Brushy, but just a corrections officer in general, and at another prison, and he said that he believed that probably was a ball, because he said they would often give them rubber balls so that they could use them for entertainment, and it wasn't something that they could easily fashion into contraband.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That'd be something to do, is play handball or something.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in
so-
solitary. What else are they going to do? You know, besides go nuts. So
Yeah.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So, to me, that was one, if I can, and I've got several other episodes where I was able to sleep at the locations. I know Brushy doesn't allow people to sleep there. Now, like I said, that was way before they opened. And to me, it was an interesting experiment, something I like to try at other places because, like we talked about, you do get a lot different activity when you're able to go in that more vulnerable state.
Yes, we agree.
Yeah, it's not necessarily better activity; it's just different. For
Yeah,
sure.
that is so cool. There was one question, and we're going to find out where
Mhm.
we can find you and all of that stuff, and we'll show the folks watching. Greg had asked, Miranda, did you ever investigate the tunnels below Brushy?
I've not. I've seen the tunnels below Brushy, but I've never investigated them. I know they've got those natural springs that run underneath there, and I think that there would be a lot of activity that you would get under there, or at least the potential for it.
Yeah, people commenting on the night EVP.
Like I said, the night is, if I had heard that in the moment, and I got to say, so it was part of a 2-night investigation. The first night I had investigated by myself. The second night there was a huge group of us there, and I think it was 8 other teams that came.
Wow, that's a lot.
And yeah, and it
Lot
was
of noise.
basically, we were experimenting because it was Easter weekend and we wanted to see if things were different on Easter weekend. We all actually saw a shadow figure manifest in the cafeteria, and there were 9 of us in there that saw this happen before our eyes. It was probably one of the most incredible things.
Wow.
And but I wanted to see, because after that first night, I thought, I'm so tired. I want to see if I can sleep. And I truly didn't think I would be able to fall asleep. And I literally picked the bunk that had the least. They have snakes there, and so I picked the one that had the least bird bones in it and feathers. And like I said, at the time, it was a very, very rough area before it
Wow.
opened. And they used to have a lot of rattlers there.
Yeah.
But anyways, and my thought was, okay, I need to make sure to check my boots when I get up and
Get out, yeah.
But I was laying there, and I literally I was out like so quick. Either I was just so exhausted, but I had my sleeping bag, and I mean, I hardly woke up. I mean, there was a time or two
Well,
I woke up when I was turning, but
that's what I
I
was going to say. I'm sorry to interrupt you,
no,
but every
no.
time there was an EVP or something was going on, you were turning. You were actually moving every time.
Yeah.
That's bizarre. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like you knew, but you didn't. So it is in one of those,
Yeah, maybe you could hear it
you could-
subconsciously.
Mhm.
right.
And I learned really quick, because the grand old lady investigation, a lot of people will laugh about the fact that I don't move when I'm doing. It's like, you didn't even move when that happened. But since I've been sleeping at these locations, I've found, obviously that's what I'm looking for, is activity. And so when it happens, it's like, if I am awake and I do hear something, I don't want to run the risk of contaminating by like raising up real quick and causing, dust orbs, or causing
Sure.
some type of false positive just from my reaction. So I tend to try to, if I hear something, lay as still as I possibly can, and hopefully it captures it.
Absolutely.
Greg
That's
says
what
spiders too.
Yeah.
So-
Don't get me going with
Yes.
snakes and spiders. I'm good. I'm going to leave now. Like,
Where's the best place to find this
Yes.
material? Where can people find? I know we've got a ticker at the bottom, but this will
Mhm.
also be an audio podcast for people, so we want to let them know how they can
Sure.
find you and where to find you and when.
Sure. And again, thank you all so much for your wonderful questions and interacting with us tonight. I absolutely love it. You can watch the past 5 seasons of Ghost Biker Explorations on the Ghost Biker Explorations Facebook page, Ghost Biker Explorations YouTube channel, and www.ghostbikerexplorations.com. We also have the weekly live stream that's every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, called Shop Talk Live from the Ghost Biker Garage, where we have, authors, artists, podcasters, different people in the paranormal community that come on and share their stories. So season 6 is going to come out in October. It airs every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time during the month of October. So we're gearing up for that. But in the meantime, go back and catch up on all those past episodes that are out there. They're free to watch and they're out there available for you.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's wonderful.
That's really, really cool.
Thank you so much again.
And, thank you for joining us. This has been a great time.
Yeah.
I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody in the audience tonight. We saw Nathaniel pop up there for a minute.
Yes.
I don't know if he's still out there, but it was cool to see him. And everybody, all you guys, you know who you are. Danny Botts, Carol Garcia, Terry Marks. It's a long list. The Hans.
Don't forget to smile, Carol Garcia says.
That's right.
To smile. And we have to.
And come see me here at the jail.
Yes.
Come see me here at the jail and book a paranormal investigation out here. You can find that information at www.historicscottcojail.com or just look us up on the Facebook page, Historic Scott County Jail.
Excellent.
Hi, Gail.
That's our friend Gail Heisen. We haven't talked in a while, Gail. We got to catch up.
Yes.
She's awesome.
That's awesome. I'm glad you put that out there. Thank you, because you are a lot of places. So
I am.
Absolutely.
And I just wanted to apologize to the audience. Apparently my my computer isn't plugged in and it died. So I couldn't moderate for a little while and talk to everybody. So sorry, Gail.
And thank you all so much for having me and for your kind words over here in the audience. I definitely appreciate that as a content creator.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much.
For being here.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next Thursday on Dark Horse Paranormal. So then, stay safe. Peace out.